Welcome to the world of sci-fi stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. We accused humans of breaking rule number 883. They unleashed their dark sights. The human delegation stood to attention during their swearing-in ceremony. As all around us, the revelry reached a fever pitch. This had been a long road, a long time coming, but a seat that was better deserved than any other in the history of the Confederacy. Humanity was finishing its oath of allegiance, and the Rutheni ambassador seemed especially eager to send in his trade fleets. However, had an agenda. With this declaration, I hereby announce the Terran Federation is now formally a member of the Galactic Confederacy. The Chamberlain yelled to a round of applause. I took my chance and pressed a button. The hovering platform on which my delegation was sitting detached from the wall and moved to a position near the humans. My fellow ambassadors scowled at me as I did this. The chair recognizes the Asarani delegation. Do you bring any objections to the proceedings? Chamberlain asked with a raised brow. Well, yes. But no. Not really no. I am not here to provide any objections to the Terran's addition to the Confederacy. I do, however, have a few questions regarding Council Ruling Number 883, the Non-Strategic Disclosure Agreement, insofar that humanity is in flagrant violation of it. In multiple cases, I have that documentation here, I said as I patted a folder nearby. If you do not object to the addition, then I have no issues. But you do realize that the disclosure agreement does not include strategic or infrastructure critical assets, correct? You have to provide us with something substantive. Chamberlain replied, Oh, I do. It's all right here. If the Council allows, I would like to call attention to humanity's so-called dark sites and how they are in violation of Council rulings. All of these planets are under a permanent military quarantine order. All of them represent a significant risk to human space. To such an extent, they appear to be under a permanent security detail. Would the Federation care to explain? I asked. The humans all looked at me, then looked down at the floor, rubbed the back of their necks with a deep, nervous breath, and all said, Yeah, nah. Never seen them do that before, one delegate idly commented. We are waiting for an explanation, I said. I was feeling shamelessly smug. Yeah, those are quarantine zones. Don't go there. Just don't. The female human, named Amari, said, We are going to need more information than that. The Chamberlain asked, Okay, we will be happy to tell you what is going on the explicit condition you obey the quarantine. Those sectors have issues. Please don't go there. Fred, the human ambassador, replied, still doing that thing where they rub the back of their necks. Let's start with dark site, number Alpha 2, as it states here in the files. The planet Recandos 3. There is not much information on this planet except its class, a forest world, and a simple note that reads, Do not enter the Feywoods, I said. The entire delegation suddenly had the expression of, Wait, what? As I read that out loud. Just promise you will just not try to do anything, and we will explain. The female replied, Okay, fine, then I promise I won't do anything about it. I said, still in full smug, Okay, fine. Recandos 3 is a forested planet. The local wildlife are a little bit aggressive, Fred said, still nervously doing that thing with the hand on the neck to fine. Aggressive, Chamberlain commanded. We have reports of military personnel being kidnapped into the darkness after hearing strange noises, stripped of flesh and muscle, then resurrected as walking skeletons. So, yeah, Fred said with a frown. We all skipped a short amount of brain function with that. Wait. Say that again. The humans all just shook their heads and nervously moved about. Think we should. You know, just this once. Amari nervously asked. Oh, come on. We let this shit get out. The casualties will be enormous. Daredevils and mercs abound, but I don't want their deaths on my conscience. Fred replied with a scowl. They're going to do it one way or another eventually. It isn't your fault most of the population has more bravery than sense, the last human delegate Angus said. shaking his head. Fine. Christ. Seriously, why? Fred shook his head and stood to attention. Fine. But I want it on record. You have been warned. Stay away. That is an order, Fred yelled, his voice echoing through the building. Chamberlain was taken aback a bit, and his ears drooped. Noted. Please proceed. Our sector of the galaxy had a little issue with a precursor race that once lived there. They like to dabble in certain things, and these dark sites are basically the remains of these dabblings. In the case of Ricondos 3. Well, Fred said. Fred pressed a few buttons on his personal wearable device, and a file was sent through the delegation. The video played for the council at volume, and showed body cam footage of a group of soldiers from some unknown agency being picked off one by invisible entities. One video captured a soldier straying too close to a dark patch in the tree line, the video slowing frame by frame to display the soldier being grabbed by a set of bony-looking tree bark-like hands, then disappearing into the darkness, followed by screaming and a hail of gunfire. The next video showed a different military force of unknown origin, engaging what looked to be the freshly flayed skeletal remains of human soldiers. Various expletives were thrown about as they exchanged gunfire with the strange army of skeletal blood-soaked remains. The skeletons were defeated, but one could clearly see the uniforms, though tattered were the same ones worn by the soldiers in the previous clip. So yeah, do not enter the Feywood, for they shall strip thine flesh and deny you thy rest. So yeah, it's a supernatural entity we still don't quite understand at the moment. We lost 3 MTF teams trying to understand. For the moment we're just holding the place down until we can figure out what's going on, Fred said as he stopped the recording. The smugness I felt immediately left me and was replaced with a sense of horrified dread. Precursors did that, I yelped. Well, yeah. The precursor civilization that populated our neck of the woods were, how can I put this delicately? Inhumanly evil, psychotically deranged sociopaths, Fred said. I suddenly no longer feel the need to pursue this line of questioning any further. I said, as I nervously shook my head. Well, get over it. You started it. We'll finish it, Fred said with a sly grin as he started another recording. Say hello to entity designation Dark Viper on the planet Reginald I. Yet more bodycam footage, mixed with security camera footage, started as we were shown a conflict with some kind of reality-breaking entity. Soldiers of clearly Terran faction, engaging against what appeared to be humanoid figures in human uniforms of unknown make, but hollowed out, showing a clear sign these were nothing more than an unknown, unseen force controlling what was essentially empty military gear. A camera panned up to show various multi-thousand-ton boulders, rocks, vehicles, and other strange items, including a battleship, casually floating around in the air above them as the battle continued. The video continued, showing a full-scale modern armed conflict with these living uniforms and ordinary human soldiers, though the humans were making decisive strikes considering how fragile their opponents seemed to be. Dark Viper is a super or paranatural entity of unknown origin, presumed to be a psionic entity in control of the planet that takes control of uniforms, military hardware, and wages war on local occupants. All civilians have long been evacuated, and the planet is now in a state of constant war as Entity Alpha, call sign Dark Viper, repeatedly resurrects several months after being killed by MTF response teams. The entity is extremely hostile and has the capacity to involuntarily warp the fabric of reality around its being, and effectively becomes a threat to any craft within the planet's radius, as it has the tendency to yeet building-sized rocks at passing starships. Do not approach, Fred said again, unable to wipe the smug grin off his own face. Before the delegation could respond, yet another video started. This one only 30 seconds long. This one a short video once again, body cam footage of a human soldier being grabbed by some strangely shaped grotesque fleshy beast monster the size of a house, then having his entire epidermal layer ripped off him before his top half is eaten by the beast. The freshly torn off flesh is discarded. Then the camera, presumably from a dead soldier, captures the sight of the skin itself, starting to move about as it appears to have been possessed by some other unnatural entity. The freshly removed skin crawls towards a nearby structure and attaches itself to the building. Then a montage begins where the progress of the house becoming living flesh plays out. Entity call sign, Flesh Beast, is a hostile, paranatural biohazard that exists on the planet HFY. Do not approach. It wants to steal your skin, Fred said. By this point, the entire council was shocked, flabbergasted, terrified, horrified. Whatever descriptive adjective you could use to describe terror, we were it. Faces were frozen in an expression of abject horror. Furs stood on end. Some delegates were hiding under their chairs. "Please stop," I meekly asked. "Nope, your dumb ass brought it up." "Here, have one more," Fred yelled as he started yet another recording. This one was from multiple perspectives, including a news camera crew during a mass civilian evacuation. Soldiers were barely holding their ground as a massive horde of humans with missing arms, legs, pieces of torso and parts of body missing, covered in blood or blown away, shambled towards them. The image changed to a soldier screaming in terror as he pulls the pin on a grenade. The camera clearly shows this shambling horde tearing him apart and chewing on him as he goes down, only for his screaming to stop when the grenade went off. The camera changes again to find a group of soldiers holding off a swarm of these creatures called zombies while trying desperately to protect a civilian convoy. It got worse as we saw the sight of some oddly shaped fleshy monstrosity leap towards a soldier, grab him, then repeatedly slam his face into the ground. The monstrosity is then blown to pieces by a cannon shell. The noise causes a huge howl to be heard in the background, followed by a swarm of these zombies. Entity from planet New Havana is a highly infectious viral strain that causes brain hemorrhaging, turning its victims into the living dead whose only purpose is to feed or spread the infection. Larger strains are caused by genetic mutation that turns its victims into horrible, tank-throwing monstrosities. This is what we call a zombie outbreak. The entities infected appear to operate on a pseudo-hive mind, making avoiding or controlling them incredibly difficult. Fred said, "Okay, enough. We get it. Please, for the love of God, stop." I yelled out, unable to take any more. "So yeah, now that that's out of the way, please follow instructions. Do not enter, at least until we figure out how to make it go away," Fred said, still very smug. "What do you mean, stay away? The Empire has armies 20 times your size. We can. Shut. We appreciate your offer. But this is our burden to bear. Thank you. Besides, thanks to this nonsense, it might be over sooner than expected," Fred said with a shrug. "What do you mean? Why did that sound so ominous?" I asked. "Well, some of us are idiots. We don't see this as a danger, we see it as a challenge. Your request here basically exposed all this to the general public, daredevils, mercenaries, freaks, anarchists, etc. You've basically just opened the floodgates to people who don't abide by the law to basically walk straight into the gates of hell with a raised middle finger." Angus replied with a smug grin. "Is there any precursor tech you can perhaps reverse engineer to fix this insanity?" One delegate asked. "Oh, hell no. If you picked up a thing that did that, would you want to see how it worked?" I wouldn't. We came across most precursor tech, and we thought, oh hell nah, and all the tech we find from our estranged predecessors has been quarantined for later study. We aren't going to do jack with that shit until we know we can beat it first. Just in case, you know how it is. So yeah, Ariana replied in turn. So basically what we're saying is, don't worry about it. The entire delegation gasped. The humans said the words. The 4 fateful words that terrified every non-human to the core. When a human says, don't worry about it, That's when you know something is seriously wrong. The 4 fateful words in that specific sequence sent half the delegations into full panic, most of them, including myself, choosing to run or find somewhere to hide. The humans scratched their heads in bewilderment at the sight. "What did I do?" Fred asked. "I don't know. Want to get lunch?" Ariana replied with a shrug. "Curry. I want curry," Angus replied. "You always want curry, Angus." "We're getting a burger," Fred said. "Curry burger. Why are you humans so nonchalant about the ungodly entities tearing you apart?" I yelled from behind my shelter. "Because we've been through worse. We got this. It'll just take time." "Don't worry about it," Fred said as the delegation went off to a casual lunch,